Good morning, everybody. We're going to be working on page 60. And what we're going to be focusing on is we're representing tenths and decomposing as whole numbers and to see just how many tenths that we can actually have when we're talking about whole numbers. This is all focusing on understanding that if we have 10 tenths, that equals a whole. If we have 10 tenths, that equals one whole. If they want hundredths, we know that if we have 100 hundredths, that equals one whole. If they want thousandths, we know that 1,000 thousandths, that equals one whole. So we're just focusing on understanding these concepts. 10 tenths equal a whole, 100 hundredths equal a whole, and 1,000 thousandths equals one whole. So let's get into the nitty-gritty, and we will begin, okay? Let's zoom in, and let's begin with focusing on our tenths first. We will then go into the hundredths in our second piece here on this page. So they first want us to, we have one whole, and they want to ask us, how many tenths do we have out of that one whole? Well, I know that if I were to decompose this whole into tenths, I know that it's gonna have to be 10 tenths that equals one whole. So how many tenths do we have? Well, we have 10 tenths to create one whole. All right, let's go into 2. Oh, let's go into B. Sorry, so they want 2 whole. How many tenths is that going to be? Well, if I have 2 whole and I split this into tenths, I know I'm going to have one group of 10 tenths. That's going to be one whole. And I'm going to have another group of 10 tenths, and that is going to be 2 whole. So how many tenths do we have? Well, we have 10, 20, well, we have 20 tenths. Okay, next they want C. So, however, this one's a bit different. They have it as a decimal, so 1 7 tenths. So how is this going to work out? Well, if I have 1 7 tenths, and we're going to decompose, we are going to decompose the whole first. So the whole I know is going to be 10. I know it's going to be 10 tenths for that whole. Now let's decompose the this 0.7 or this 7 tenths here. Let's decompose that next. So I know that's just going to equal 7 tenths. When we add these, we have 10 plus 7. Well, that's going to be 17 tenths. Okay? I want you to try to do this next one. Try to do D, E, and F, focusing on how many tenths we will have. So start with D. Pause the video, try them out, and see how many tenths you can get. Okay, so I'm going to begin with 2 9 tenths. So I'm going to put 2 9 tenths here, and I'm going to decompose them. So I'm going to decompose the 2 whole first. So I know that if I were to decompose this into 10 tenths and then 10 tenths, well, I can start doing this where I have 20 tenths. That is 2 whole, right? Because it's 10 tenths plus 10 tenths. This is a whole, and that would equal 20 tenths. So that's how I got 20 tenths. So we also have 9 tenths here. Let's add these up, and guess what? 20 plus 9, that equals 29 tenths. All right. Let's go with E. Now this one might be a little bit tricky for you because you're just like, okay, we have 10 whole here. How many tenths is that going to be? Well, let's write it down. So we got 10 and 7. Oh, let me do purple. 10 and 7/10. Well, guess what? I know if I just do 10/10, 10/10, 10/10, 10 times, I'm going to get to 100 tenths. And I mean, we can do this as a number bond where you can do you can do 10 whole, take out 10 tenths, take out 10 tenths, take out 10 tenths, take out 10 tenths, until you get to 10 whole. But that's going to take you forever. You should know that, 10 times 10 is 100. 100 tenths is going to equal 10 whole. We then have 7/10. And so here we have 100 plus 7. Well, that's going to be 107/10. Okay, now I want you to try the same philosophy for this next one. So F, 20 whole. How many tenths is that going to be? We'll do 10 tenths, 10 tenths, 10 tenths, 10 tenths, 20 times. So 10 tenths, 10 tenths, 10 tenths, 20 times until we get to 20 whole. So how many tenths would that be? I want you to do this on your own and see if you can solve here. So pause the video, see if you can do this one on your own. Challenge yourself. Have a growth mindset. Challenge yourself here. All right, so I'm going to write 20 and 9/10. And I know that if I decomposed 20 whole and took out tenths, it's going to equal 200 tenths. And my 9/10 is just going to be 9/10. This is going to equal 20 and 9. That's going to be 209. 209. I like that. Okay. Now, the hundredths, that's going to be very similar to tenths, but instead, we're just going to take out 100 hundredths. So, give you some good clues here. One whole, how many hundredths? Well, if I put one whole here, and we are trying to take hundredths, it's going to be 100 hundredths to equal that one whole. So 100 hundredths. So 100 hundredths. What about 2 whole? Well, if I have 2 and I need to decompose, I'm going to take out 100 hundredths. And I'm going to take out 100 hundredths. And that equals 2 hundredths. Oh, no, not 200. Not 2. 200 hundredths. Okay? My next one is going to be 1 and 7/10. However, we know from our previous lesson, when we have 1/10, it can't be 100. Or sorry, it will be 10 hundredths. All right. So in this case, if we have 7/10, we know it's going to be 70 hundredths. Okay. So let's break this down. So we have 1 and 7/10. I'm going to decompose the one whole. It's going to be 100 hundredths. And this 7/10, I know it's going to be 70 hundredths. Add 170, and that is going to be 170 hundredths. All right, let's try 2 and 9/10. I have to write a little bit smaller here. And we're going to do the same thing. So this is going to be 200 hundredths. And this is going to be 90 hundredths. And we're going to add them. Sorry, we're going to add 290. And it's going to be 290 hundredths. Okay, I'd like for you to try E and F on your own and try to understand, try to do them on your own completely and decompose 10 into hundredths and 20 into hundredths, 20 whole into hundredths. Okay, last but not least, we're going to be working with this diagram below. And what's really important for us to know is they want us to use these decimals and put them into mixed numbers. So 4 and 2 tenths. Easy enough. They really just want us to know how many, placing our decimal and knowing our decimals and making them into mixed numbers, and then knowing how many tenths we have within that decimal and that mixed number. Well, I know that 4 whole is going to be 40 tenths. And I know that this 2 tenths is just another 2 tenths. And when I add them, they equal 42 tenths. Now, what if we did this as hundredths? Well, all I would have to do is just place zeros at the end to make them into hundredths, our place value for hundredths. I know there's going to be 420 hundredths. I'll do the next one for you, and I want you to do the other ones on your own. So we have 8 whole and 4 tenths. Same thing. This 8 is going to be 80 tenths plus 4 tenths is going to be 84 tenths. Then hundredths, we have 840 hundredths. Remember, we're just going from, basically you're multiplying by 10 here. You're multiplying, because we're going to hundredths, so you're multiplying by 10 on the top and bottom to make 840 hundredths. Same thing here, times 10. We're going from tenths to hundredths. Okay, I want you to try the rest here. It's going to be a little tricky, but I want you to try to expand and challenge yourself here, okay? So I want you to try these ones on your own. All right, everybody, have a fantastic day. Hope you learned a lot about creating whole numbers, making tenths, and making hundredths here, and decomposing these units to represent tenths and hundredths.